should speak slowly, just so you don't get anything lost. But so you're asking about, sorry, a little bit vague, but you wanted to know about the inspiration, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Sure. Well, basically my own mom, my mother, who is generation of these women, and who's like, this big fireworks of energy herself, always full and vibrant and passionate about life. And she was talking about that there was no movies for her generation. About them. They always had to mirror themselves in younger generations, which they did, at least here in Denmark, Scandinavia. And they did, her and her friends, without really thinking about it, because that's just how it wasn't a lot of films for them. And I thought that was such a waste, all those amazing stories and lives. Why should they not matter? And that brought me on to, a little bit an important path, I think, in terms of the fact that we all coming at a certain age become more irrelevant to to society in general. One don't have our jobs anymore. We kind of lose our identity and have to redefine ourselves. I know that's not one to one what the Food Club is about, but for me, it's we're actually working on a sequel right now. That's kind of what I always wanted it to be about, and then there was too many good things it had to be about. But so to me, that was kind of the importance of it. But and then her friendships, my mom's friendships, she's been super lucky having friendships for over 40 years now, and I was just so inspired. I lived in Los Angeles for 11 years away from Denmark. So for me, I I don't have those relationships been through everything together and seeing each other through hardships and breakups and illnesses and stuff. And to see her life like that is so inspiring to me. So I feel like you have to be careful and take good care of your friendships, as you should any other relationship in life. And I think we all kind of tend to forget to nurture and take care of them. And I think it's natural, but I think it's a nice reminder to yeah to love and take care of each other just as well as you would in a relationship.
And also, I wanted to ask about directing the film and what that experience was like of directing the film in general and really just your overall style of directing on set as well.
Mm. Well, because I lived 11 years in LA, probably pretty American or Danish person.
Mhm.
But to me, I grew up the summers, and I grew up. We always went to Italy, and I was so inspired by. I always drew making a movie there, and going back to my childhood and all that romance and rustic, and, locations, and beautiful landscapes and vibrant food. And so it was, of course, a dream come true to be able to go there. This was a different region, Puglia, than I had been before. I'd always been in Tuscany. So it was also kind of an adventure. And it was a little tough as well, I must admit, because I had a baby. I had a 4 months old when I started the location scouting. We were there. Yeah, I can't remember what it is in Fahrenheit, but in Celsius it was like 37 or something degrees. So very, very hot, and with this little baby and having to go around. But again, having these beautiful locations, and it was really, really great and really fun. But of course, like all the trees around the world have so many different styles of movie making, also in terms of production, how to, I come from, again, America, and then of course Denmark, which is a little bit of a different style, and then Italy is a completely different style. And it was a great challenge, but it was also a challenge because they especially in the countryside in Italy, they have a very laid back very way of making movies, where both in Denmark and America we're somewhat strict and have our ways of doing it and who does what. And and there was a kind of a funny little fun fact, or not so fun at all. The men was not allowed to wear shorts, even though it's like crazy hot in Italy. The women were not allowed to wear makeup, and I'm like, in this, it was 2020. It was so strange to me. And once I started asking the female crew and stuff about it, they really felt like that was old fashioned themselves, and but it was just the way they were allowed to be missing to the male people on set. So but it was great. It was really fun to have these amazing women. I don't know if you're talking to our actresses as well. They are all huge stars here in different capacities and ways. We're all theater and movie stars and comedians. So it was amazing having it was such a gift having them deliver such, I had my way of knowing, because we worked on the script for like 5 years, so I totally thought I knew what. And then of course once we started working with them and with the material, it became its own thing. And the three women's chemistry and their way of making it come alive was obviously such a privilege. And having done until then mainly, not only but mainly, children's things and youth films and stuff, it was where where you sometimes have to really drag the performances out of the um this was, of course, I got so much handed to me, which was quite a new experience for me, that I could be so surprised and just what I got, instead of knowing exactly what I wanted from the beginning. So that was very helpful for me, and very fun.
And also, speaking of the actresses, I also wanted to ask about casting them and what that process was like of having them sign on to star in the film.
Yeah. Well, I think of what I said in the beginning about my mother's generation, them to, once you are a woman over even 50, and I know it's in the States and a lot of countries, there's not a lot of roles, and there's not a lot of big roles. Even these big stars of the past couple generations, they had a hard time getting lead roles that were interesting. It's almost always the wife, or even the doctor, or like the police detective or something small. So they weren't used to having big roles that really arc. And so they were all so happy and thankful to be asked. And of course, in the beginning, it was very much about their chemistry and making sure that they all acted in the same uh, tone. Because again, when they come from such different worlds, at least here in the Royal Theatre of this generation has a certain way of, even pronouncing, being theatrically inclined in a certain way, where movies are a completely different way of speaking and handling dialogue. And so luckily, it was so obvious from the beginning they were totally able to find each other, and I was able to help, obviously saying my vision and what kind of tone I want. I was very inspired by Nancy Meyer's movies, which I love. Of course, I wanted to be my own in a Danish way, but I was very inspired by her movies. So yeah, I feel like the casting was very easy, and I was just so happy that I could get these three on.
And also, speaking about their chemistry together and having the three of them really work together to build a friendship between their characters, I also wanted to ask about having maybe rehearsal time with them and really working with them on their characters' relationships and dynamics as well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not very common here to rehearse, but I have done it with all of my things, and that was really helpful, again, trying to find the tone, but also just to find the relationship, and having to create this friendship that has lasted for so many years. And since that is the core of the story, um, that was obviously super important to me, that felt totally believable, and it got to be that intense pain, with all the disappointments that you have in what kind of relationship over 40 years, not having been there probably more than the other. In that crucial scene in the dark where the truths come out about how they feel at heart, that was so important, that was spot on. We spent a lot of time working on that, and I was really happy about that. And all the women, I think it was such a privilege to be in Italy, because we were away from. I had my family with me because I had a baby, but they were away from their reality, so they were really able to focus on, the material and what we wanted to do with the story. So we felt a little bit like the movie, like we had our own magic going on, being in this place, and we're able to spend all our time doing that. So at night we had these group dinners, like in the movie, and explored the countrysides on the weekends together, and it just gave this really great bond that we all kind of had, which I cherish very much, and which is why I want to even equal, because that worked so well. It makes me want to tell more of that story, because I feel like developing these characters, and they are so different, obviously on purpose. Everybody has their favorite, and we kind of wanted to make like a modern day version of the older Sex in the City. Who do you want to be? What kind of character do you want to be? Do you want to be bad? Do you want to be one of the others? And I think Stina had a little of a hard time in the beginning. Um, she was afraid, because she's a royal actress. She was afraid that it was going to get to be too much, that it was going to be that she would be, how can I say it, yucky almost, being
Yeah.
older lady said, and being such a man eater, and I was to trust how beautiful you are, and how sexy you still are, and that we women can be that. And for me, I think that's kind of one of the core things, is that for us women, now I can tell you're young, but I'm 41. At a certain point, we don't lose our feminine power. Of course, it wears off. And I think for me, it was very interesting working with these women, and we had a lot of focus groups up until like working with the script. And because didn't want only being, well, again, in my late 30s and stuff, I didn't want it to be me thinking that I knew everything about what it was like being that age for a person, for a woman, just from asking my mom. So I wanted to really talk to a lot of people and hearing their views on, yes, on sex, on personal development. Did they become different in terms of seeing themselves in the mirror? Do they still feel like they're 30 inside, or do they feel the age they are? And to me, that's super interesting. Of course, they all said, no, we're 25 inside. None of them felt like they were 70. So yeah.
And also, I wanted to ask about also being one of the producers on the movie, and what that experience was like of both directing and producing the film as well.
Well, well, it was tough money wise, because I had to invest most of my money in getting the film made, and we actually had a hard time getting it financed. There is a lot of men in the we have, like, here we have a Danish film that finances most of the commercial movies, and then you have other funds and stuff, but you can't really make movies without them signing on. And excuse me, and them and on the TV network and stuff, there was a lot of men making the decisions. And over these course of these years, it was obvious to us that, again, a lot of movies weren't being made about women this age, or even over 50 as the main characters. and it wasn't so interesting to them. They were and they used very degrading words, some of them, about women not being that attractive at that age, and you had to have a character that someone wanted to sit with. And one of my big inspirations was Alexander Payne's Sideways, and I kept trying to argue, saying, well, Miles, he's not fuckable, he's not that sexy, but it's super important, yeah, it was kind of sad that it came to that, and that we had to fight so much. So in terms of producing in that way, it was hard, because we were kept hitting the wall and kept having to, twist people's heads and make them believe that this movie could sell tickets and people wanted to see it. And but of course, as an executive producer, in terms of making the decisions, it's great. But in Denmark, we're so lucky that the directors almost always have final cut, and it didn't really influence that much in the American sense of the word.
And also, I wanted to ask about the film's upcoming release now here in America, and securing the digital and the virtual cinema release, and what that process was like of deciding how you wanted to distribute the film as well.
Well, I didn't have that, unfortunately. We have a sales company that has handled all that, and I've been in heavy production on other things. But to me, of course, it's been tough in general in this time, as a lot of filmmakers, having worked again for 5 years developing the film and then getting it and finishing it during the pandemic. It was tough getting it finished, because the post place was shut down, and we ran out of money because Italy's film fund increased the money that they were supposed to, because Italy was, as you know, not in a good place. And then we finally, things got a little bit better in Scandinavia, and then we were actually able to have a big gala, and the film came out, and then it was out and pretty well, and then everything shut down again, and we got taken out of the movie theaters because they closed down, and then we had to think quite quick and be like, what are we going to do? And luckily, then we could go digitally pretty quick. Usually in Denmark, you have to have like 6 months break from being in a theater until it comes online, which is very old-fashioned, I might add. But luckily, they were able to, make changes on a few of these films, like that otherwise would just be on the shelf. So that was really good for us to cut there. And I know there's like, I've been doing interviews from all over the world, and countries are obviously open. Like Australia apparently was doing great in the theaters while they were open in some cities, and so that part is really fun. So because I've lived in America for 11 years, of course, it's a little sad to me, the chance of being in the movie theaters that we're not. But nowadays, I'm sure it's actually going to hit just as many people. I'm sure if they do their jobs right, people who are actually distributing it and getting the PR done. And she's listening in, so I'm sure they will.
Okay, I think that was mainly it, but thank you again for taking the time out today. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.